Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? We have retired FBI investigator of 25 years, John DeSouza, with us. This is going to be a very detailed podcast. Now, John's been on the show a few times in the past, and we've talked about this body, this 6-inch skeletal body that was discovered in northern Chile in a desert out there. And there's been a lot of controversy about this 6-inch mummy. Is it real? Is it fake? Is it a fetus? Is it human? Is it extraterrestrial? Well, we're going to talk about it, certainly. Now, I also want to bring up that John has written 3 fantastic books you need to get. They're all must-reads: Clear Hearers, Extra Dimensionals, and The Para-Investigators. Mr. DeSouza has traveled the world in search for the truth. Are we really alone? Not too long ago, Mr. DeSouza was working with Dr. Stephen Greer on a project that involved, once again, this 6-inch mummy that was discovered in the northern Chile region. The, is it pronounced Atacama?
Atacama.
Thank you.
Atacama.
Atacama. English isn't my first language, folks. I'm a reptilian shapeshifter. The Atacama Desert. Now, this miniature body has captivated audiences from coast to coast and brought quite the amount of controversy along the way. We've talked a bit about it once again. I've said this before, but the information today is going to take it far further. Now, also, this information could lead even the most hardened skeptics into the realm of knowing we are not alone or the very real possibility. Now, John, thanks a lot for being on the podcast. I know you're extremely busy. How the heck are you?
Oh, I'm great, Rex. It's great to be here with you again, with you and your wonderful audience. It's fantastic. It's been too long, and it's always a joy to be able to spend a little time with you on these important topics that you are so well versed on.
Thank you. And the check is in the mail. I appreciate that. I actually sent John a check.
Because you are the hardest working man on YouTube.
Well, I'm having the most fun too. So if working's having fun, you can't really call it work, but certainly 12, 16 hours a day, I'm putting into leak projects, sometimes even more. Same with you, with what you're doing. Every time I go on your Facebook page, you're at a different event. And I mean, how does it feel to go from a FBI investigator to a rock star?
Well, I wouldn't say rock star, but it is wonderful to be able to just go to all these places and talk and exchange with so many people, both the speakers and the audience as well, who are so way ahead of the population, the general population, who are so awakened. And who are so anxious and so hungry for these topics to be revealed to them. You know, they're just wonderful. It's wonderful to be around them because they demand the most from us. They demand always new information from us. They demand on these developing topics that we're living through right now, topics that are invisible to the mainstream. They don't even though it's happening right in their faces, it's happening in their faces, but there's always this screen that's pulled over it so that they can't tell what's happening right on top of them.
Well, yeah, John, I mean, you know what it is? It's the people that are looking for new information. They've been fed enough of the brain drain media. And you know the saying, iron sharpens iron. Clearly, the people that watch the podcast, that watch what you do, read your books, very intelligent, and they're way ahead of the curve. And speaking of being ahead of the curve, folks, I want to let you know there's some awesome opportunities right now at Noble Gold Investments and Noble Gold Bitcoin. I'm looking at the Dow chart right now. Today, it had a bit of a dip, but I'm looking at what it's done over the past year. It hasn't really done much. If you go back a year ago versus today, it's had its ups and downs. It's up a little bit. But if you followed gold and silver and cryptos, the opportunities are phenomenal. If you want to take your 401 or your IRA, a little bit of it, you can choose how much. You can convert it into precious metals, gold, silver, even cryptos. And yes, if you want to hold those gold and silver coins in your hands, you can. Click the links, get the free books. You'll be glad you did. Noble Gold Investments and Noble Bitcoin. Whew, I said that as fast as I could. All right, now.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to have options. It's not good to put all your eggs in one basket, in my opinion. And if there's other options out there, certainly take advantage of that opportunity, folks. Some great opportunities. But so the first question I want to ask about this 6-inch bipedal skeletal body that was discovered in the desert. I mean, how was it discovered?
It was discovered. Well, it depends on which crowd you talk to, but as far as I'm concerned, it was discovered in 2012 when Dr. Greer brought it forward in the Western world to prominence, and he brought it forward. He let people know about it. He took physical possession of the 6-inch Atacama mummy, and he brought it forward to us from where it had been originally found in northern Chile, in the deserts of northern Chile, called the Atacama Desert. And in 2012 was when we first really everyone got to know about it.
Okay, now I've actually broken that name down several times, so I think I'll be able to say it right. Atacama. It's an
That's it.
Atacama.
That's it. You
Yeah.
did it.
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. So the Atacama mummy, it's a 6-inch bipedal skeletal remain, and
Yeah.
you had, or you and Dr. Greer and others had this tested, and you thought that it would be a good idea to have a university, which I can definitely see that. Can
Yeah.
now walk us through the process of what goes on next?
Well, in 2012, when Dr. Greer found this, I never worked with Dr. Greer. I never got the opportunity. I would love to, but he did this on his own because I myself, as an investigator, would never have turned this thing over to what was it, the university authorities that he did. I don't want to say the wrong university because that's they did some bad things, and it's escaping me the name of the university right now at this moment. But it was the university head of their science department that Dr. Greer trusted with the body, this cadaver, this body, by the way, that had only been dead for maybe a couple of decades. It appeared, according to the dating that was done on it. And then
Stanford.
that was it. Stanford, you said?
Yes.
Yes, yes, and that was it. And it was Stanford University Science Department. And Dr. Greer, because he's a PhD scientist himself, he trusted another PhD scientist with this, based on his promises that he would deal with this honestly, that he would give a result no matter what the result was, that he would be truthful with it, and that he would tell exactly what happened with this figure, this mummy, which then the media, of course, immediately started calling alien mummy, alien mummy, which no one involved with it ever started calling that because no one said it was an alien. All that Dr. Greer was saying and everyone else associated with this was saying is that this thing is not human. It tested for about 22 different characteristics that showed that were not of human origin. That's an enormous number. That's an enormous, including, of course, the size, because the size was checked for dwarfism. There's a very easy genetic test you can do for dwarfism in the preliminary tests, which were all completed almost immediately. So therefore, the thing was its normal size at 6 inches. It was at its normal size. You see, that's one of the preliminary tests which was able to be done right away. That was able to be done right away, and that therefore, if it has no dwarfism, then how do you explain the size except for non-humanness? The fact that it is a different species, it is not human, and that's an easy preliminary test to do, and they did that right away. And so Stanford University said at that time, they said they completed all the preliminary tests, and every preliminary test, which was able to be done pretty quickly, all showed non-human factors on this thing, including the cranium. Of course, I wish you had some of the pictures left over, Rex, that you could throw up of this thing, but because I don't have any available right at this moment. Ah, there it is. Ah, cool. Well done. Well done. Hey there. Hi there. No, what do you say? Hello. That's it.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, that's the shape of the cranium was one of the factors, non-human factors. It had the extended cranium that we see in some of the crystal skulls and other non-human features. It had the extended, elongated skull with a capacity, brain capacity was much larger than any human species. It had that. Also, it had the skull, as you can see, is completely fused, as were all the joints. In other words, that was one of the non-human factors that were tested in preliminary, which can actually be can be proven visually. You don't even need to do a test with that. You can see that the skull is very well fused. Also has a different number of plates for the skull as well from human. It had, I don't know, it had like 6 plates or something for the skull, and humans only have 4. And so it had a different number of plates, and also the skull was well fused within several years. Uh, and as well as the joints. The joints were also fused, well fused. What that all that means is that it's not a fetus. It's not a fetus. It's most likely in its own species a teenager, and it was from they estimated 6 to 7 years. Oh, sorry, 6 to 8 years old in terms of weight bearing, because they could see through just a visual examination of the skull and the joints that it had been, and the thickness of the bones. They could see right away that it had been a weight bearing creature, weight bearing for at least 6 to 8 years, which probably means it was about roughly a teenager of its own species at the time of death. So those are simple factors to just pick out on this thing that showed right away. And also the eye sockets. The eye sockets were what we call the gray eye sockets. You can see it better on the other side. That the wraparound kind of eye sockets that were not human at all. I'm trying to think of other distinguishing factors. There were many factors that distinguish this thing from human. And here's the thing. Once and this is the trick that I found out as an investigator, because of people just sending me information about these incidents that happen apparently all over the world. The Atacama mummy is not the first time this has happened. It's happened many times over the years. There was also the Kishtim mummy in Russia, that almost the exact same structure, very similar looking creature, and and it happened. Geez, I think it happened in 1980, right around 1980, when the Kishtim mummy was discovered, and that was a very similar case paralleling this one. Because what happened in this one is what they usually do. They do the preliminary findings. They did the preliminary findings, which found all non-human factors on this thing, on this creature that they had on the mummy. Then what happens is that they they put it in for the preliminary testing is called mitochondrial DNA testing. Uh, the extended testing is called nuclear. It's called nuclear testing and nuclear DNA testing, and that takes several years. So what typically happens is people forget all about this incident, this all these shocking pictures of the mummy. They forget about it because it goes into the for the nuclear testing for several years, and then what happens is people forget about the preliminary testing, because the way it works, your ultimate conclusions can only vary from the preliminary testing only a small percentage. You can't have you can't if the preliminary testing was effective, was not defective, and was real, then and it wasn't fraudulent, then uh, the ultimate nuclear conclusions that you come to down the road cannot deviate from the preliminary testing, except for very minor percentages. That's the way it works with this sort of thing. But they depend on the fact that nobody knows this except scientists. So that was one of the things that they depend on, and then they wait for everyone to forget about the original testing, what it showed, and then in this case, just about a year ago, Stanford University came out with what you call in the law a whole cloth conclusion, where they just said, "Oh, you know what? This forget about everything and not connected to any of the testing." They simply came up with a whole cloth conclusion that this was just a female human fetus after all. That's all it was, a mutated human fetus, nothing else, nothing more than that. And that didn't associate or correlate with any of the testing that was done.
So here's the actual genome research white paper. Whole genome sequencing of Atacama skeleton shows novel mutations linked with dysplasia. And it's interesting because look at this. 1,047 structural variations were detected. 1,047, folks. Oh my goodness. But it's a fetus. It's a fetus from swamp gas. Did you see the size of that swamp gas? It was 6 inches, and the swamp gas came from Uranus, and it made this thing out of the Chilean desert. And you better believe me, because I got a degree and I'm a scientist. It says so right there. You're gonna believe me,
Exactly.
dude.
Exactly. And one of the
Dude.
things that one of the things they I'm not sure what dysplasia is though. I almost can remember what it is, but I'm not quite. Uh, but one of the things that they do is that yeah, they depend on the fact that they're scientists and you're not, and so they figure you can't second guess them. The problem in this case was that, of course, Dr. Greer is a scientist himself, and he was able to tell the fakery that they did, which is that they came up, which is that they put forward the conclusion and did not associate it to any sort of research that happened, any DNA testing. There was no connection to the testing when they finally said it's just a human fetus after all. There was no association to any testing. As a matter of fact, Dr. Greer was so upset that he thought someone should go after them civilly because they were putting forward a fraud. The problem with that, I know as an attorney, is that whenever they make their conclusions, they put it forward under the title hypothesis, and so that they can't really be charged with fraud, not really, no matter what they say. So that's one of the things that scientists have been doing for many years in order to put up this wall against truth so that we can never penetrate that wall. It's because they know this process, they're in control of it, and they have the ability to put forward anything they want once they humor us with the preliminary testing and so forth. And that's why this happens over and over again, because for some reason, the cabal and their minions don't want us to know the truth of the earth that we live on. They don't want us to know that there are non-human species that occupy this earth with us. Non-human species that don't fit into their paradigm of what can exist and what cannot. And that's the reason why they want to keep us from this. And that's why they have their scientists work for their tenure, for their grants, for their awards that they get from the Department of Defense, and they are not interested in helping us find new species that are going to break open their scientific paradigm that they have going up till now.
That's actually one of the questions I was going to ask, and you just answered it. And you probably knew I was going to ask the question, so you answered it before because that's just how you roll. No, I'm joking, but no, that was spot on. I was going to ask you, like, why would they cover something of this magnitude up?
Yeah, they don't want us to get across that goal line, the goal line of finding out that there are other non-human species in this earth that are with us, because it appears, and this is after the fact reporting, it appears that these creatures in the Atacama Desert are they're not out there all dead. Apparently, they're not out there as fossils. Apparently, there's a chance that they are alive out there right now, and that they are seen by people. And this is just anecdotal police report type type information, but still valid as far as I'm concerned, because it's just people reporting that they see these creatures out there in the Atacama Desert and they are significantly larger because the one we found was actually a sort of a teenage child apparently, and they grow up to about a foot tall, and they have some kinds of special abilities when they move around to protect themselves. And they are out there, especially when there's a full moon. I don't know why, but that's what the reporting has been. Not just in the Atacama Desert, but in other sort of barren wasteland areas around the world. They have reported these types of creatures appearing on the surface of the earth at different times, which makes us believe they may be coming from underneath the earth. So that's one of the things. And, science is going to make sure that we never discover this, that we never get to there, because they are the authorities and they form part of that gaslight triangle that keeps us from truth at all times. And that's very difficult to fight against because of everybody's upbringing. Everybody's been brought up to believe that a laboratory could never be wrong. They just test stuff. They just give you the results of the tests. How could they not tell the truth? And the real truth is they give false results all the time, all the time. Where I used to live in New Jersey, there were several labs that were shut down for giving false results on a regular basis. That's an extreme remedy, but it does happen, and the false results, I believe, also happen much more than we could ever imagine, like it does for people in the alternative community. Whenever they bring these Paracas skulls, they bring these Paracas skulls in, and this happened to Gaia TV. They brought in the Paracas skulls and the other skeletons that were the alien skeletons, and they brought these to labs all over the United States, expecting that they were going to get honest results. Well, as I told Gaia TV at the time, and they didn't really listen, uh, labs have to be recertified every year. And they are not going to lose their license by finding that you just gave them a skull that belongs to a non-human species. They're not going to put themselves in the checkoff box for discovering a non-human species, because if they do that, their masters, the higher up masters at the higher levels, will be very upset with them, and they know that. They know that, and they are not going to lose their licenses over this. And that's why every result they gave back on the Paracas skulls and the other skeletons that we all heard about. You may have pictures of those things somewhere. They gave back. Every result was either undetermined, unable to determine, or it was just non-human apparently, based on nothing, based on none of the testing. And that's what happened to them over and over again. And that's what will always happen if you just depend on these labs to give you honest results on these things.
Man, you're making way too much sense, John. And you're talking about the compartmentalization of the planet. And, people have argued about the shape of the planet. Folks, I'm going to tell you what shape the planet is. It's a pyramid. Okay. It's a pyramid. And the MFers, the dungeon masters that love you so much, they're having you build it for them while they're enjoying themselves lavishly in the apex. And you have a choice. I mean, you can be in the apex too. You just have to know where it is. And you have to know where your position is at this current time. And what you were telling us, I don't think people realize how big this is. And I got to say, you've talked to me about this before. And as awesome as I thought it was, for some reason now it just seems to be even next level. And let me tell you why I feel this is next level. I think it's connected all the way around the world, these beings. And kind of like humans, you can have somebody that's 5'8", and you can have somebody that's 7'4", and you can have people even shorter than 5'8". So there's different size human beings. There's different shapes and sizes of dogs and animals, etc. So why not these beings? You're talking about them getting up to about a foot tall, maybe being inner Earth and the atmospheric conditions. That would make sense. but you kind of talked about the gray wraparound eyes. And I am wondering if these beings could be native to the planet and if they could be connected to the areas out here, such as Sancawi in New Mexico, Bandolera in New Mexico, Dulce, New Mexico, because there are a multitude of these caverns that have been built into mountainsides and cliff sides. And the ant people are talked about, and they're very, very small. I mean, if you're 5'8" and you're going to have to duck in these things, because that's how small these areas are. So what I am wondering is if they're all kind of connected. If these beings are what some people have called aliens in the past, and they're natives. What are your thoughts?
I think that's absolutely correct because I do a whole presentation on this where I show people all the examples of these sort of little creatures that appear to be all over the world in remote areas, big deserts, big rocky areas, rocky mountainous areas that go out into a plain. I show this. I show and very similar creatures that are very similar to each other, but with like the Kishtim creature out in Kishtim, Russia, the Atacama, and many others, Argentina, in a remote area of Argentina. Also, there have been sightings of these creatures and videotaping of these creatures also. And it's out there. The people just have to look for the stuff, and it is out there. And one of the things that these creatures seem to have certain things in common. Well, of course, besides the incredibly small size, one of the things they seem to have in common is that they appear to have they appear to give off some kind of electromagnetic interference. Electromagnetic interference. There have been a couple of instances of people getting them on videotape, or at least trying to get them on videotape, and suddenly an EMF signal, electromagnetic interference signal, just kind of comes on as soon as they appear on camera, and starts to blitz out the signal of the camera. And that, if you're an investigator and you're looking at that, you're already wondering how do these creatures survive in a place like a desert with all the freaking all the predators and them being that small size. And one of the ways that they would survive and prosper is by giving off electromagnetic interference, so that eagles and hawks and anything that flies would have a hard time locking in on them with their instinct, and it could also interfere with the brains of any other predators as well. So that kind of seems consistent with things being of this incredibly small size, that they would have some kind of abilities that give them an advantage of being able to expose themselves in this kind of predator filled environment and be able to survive very easily, very well.
Yeah, I
As a
mean,
matter
look
of,
at.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, John. I was just going to say,
No,
look at
go
the
ahead.
size of their heads. I mean, the cranial capacity must
Exactly.
be phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I'm
It's
imagining
consistent
the.
with that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm imagining these tiny people with laser guns and stuff like that. They're like, "Wake up,
Yeah.
we can talk." They speak in like this language, like, but they put on these transponders. So yes, we can
Mhm.
communicate with you. They just tap them on you, and you're like, "Yes, I understand." And they
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's
Yeah.
pretty wild. But
Yeah.
do you think that there is a very let's I'll attempt to be serious here for a minute, not just from serious. Do you think that they could be very technologically advanced, like even beyond our capabilities right now?
I think I don't know about technologically, like building, like having cities and things like that. Uh, if that's what you mean. But I think supernaturally, yes, in terms of having supernormal abilities, because that's consistent with the incredible size of the cranium. Because I just imagine that if you have an oversized cranium like that, you've got to have some kinds of special abilities that are beyond even just giving off that electromagnetic interference that I just talked about. They probably have other powers too, other abilities that allow them to control and influence small animals, and who knows, maybe even human beings as well. So yeah, I think they're very advanced in that sense. Definitely.
Wonderful. Yeah, I appreciate that information. And unless there's questions from the audience, and folks, I'll do my best to see if you have a question, but I would like to talk about the compartmentalization programming now and how deep that goes. I don't think we're going to be able to get too detailed in this podcast. Maybe we'll do an exclusive in the future because if you ever have an opportunity to see John speak in person, he does a wonderful slideshow presentation combined with the information is just, it's phenomenal. So you definitely want to make it to one of his events when he speaks because it's first class. And some of the information is so intense that if I'm going to do it with him, I'm going to want to make it exclusive on Leak Project, and I'll make it free. It'll be totally free. But so you really get into the compartmentalization, and you just talked about a piece of that with the scientists and the funding for the scientists. You said it brilliantly, and it makes me think about that key going to a multitude of factions, different industries, et cetera. So let's talk more about the compartmentalization programming and this mind control that keeps people inside of this box. They don't
Oh,
think for
absolutely.
themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I believe, and the way that I say it is that we are living now in a gaslight triangle, which has three legs. There's three legs in every triangle, and the first leg, of course, is mainstream media, which people don't understand how pervasive mainstream media is, and how powerful and global it is, and it's just completely controlled by this cabal. And the second leg is the is government authorities, and all of their minions that are just deceiving us every which way we turn. And the third leg, which I would argue is the most powerful leg, is the scientific mainstream, uh, of, in this world, in the entire world of science. That's the third leg. And the reason this is an iron triangle is because scientific authorities are so much authority with people, especially if you're over a certain age. I mean, we're all taught that doctors and scientists, and laboratories have to be telling us the truth. They're always telling us the truth, and it's very difficult to break that mindset. Very difficult. And the proof of it is how much they've gotten away with over the last 50 years. I can show, I often do, I often show people all of the advertisements that were from, I don't know, from like 50 years ago, 50 years ago, of medical doctors giving testimony in advertisements that cigarettes and nicotine are good for your lungs, and that this brand of cigarettes is the best one, and that that's a proven medical fact that nicotine is good, has a great effect on the lungs, and helps people in every way, helps their health. And if you look back, there's hundreds and hundreds of those ads they were on television, and they were on billboards as well. And that's the medical community, the same medical community that today is pushing vaccines on our children, and that is pushing on our old people, are pushing pharmaceutical drugs to such an extent that we've lost an entire generation of old people to these kidnappers, this pharmaceutical industry. And of course, that's more pervasive than just the old people, of course. And this is because the scientific community is working for them, to a large extent. They're not working for us. They're not working for you. That's that's why they're so powerful.
Man, that's a great point there. And before I get into the compartmentalization more, this is something I was going to bring up at the beginning, and it left my memory for the time being. I remember now. Area 51, the storm Area 51. I remember that Facebook post came out, the mainstream media picked up on it, and then within a matter of days, it went from a few hundred to over 1 million people that had signed up. Half of them, more than half of them, I'm sure, were joking about signing up to go to the event. But clearly, it was a worldwide phenomenon, and it's fractured since then. It's fractured off into several different pieces. I think there's one event that's going to be going on in Hico, Nevada. Did I say that right? Hico, Nevada. Possibly Rachel, but then the guy that started the Facebook page had his lawyers send a cease and desist letter to the people in Rachel saying that they couldn't use their logo of alien stock, yada, yada, which is kind of funny because, I mean, you should have called it alien in stock, folks. Come on, alien stock. It's just too easy. Everybody wants an alien in stock. But what's going on with that, John? You got insider info on this.
I'm going to tell you this, Rex, because I feel like your audience can take it. And it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's just this. And we're calling this alien charge, alien stock. Is that how we're referring to this whole movement, the whole thing? Um, the the whole thing with whenever you see, and I teach evidentiary rules to people all the time. I have these whole systems of rules of proof and evidence and systems of investigation that you can take and go forward with step by step by step in order to see what could possibly be true and what is not. And one of the things that I try to teach people over and over again is that whenever you spot mainstream media coming in and pumping up something that is in the forbidden community, something that is an alternative truth that you've always seen them stay away from, always, because they are under orders. You've always seen them stay away from this stuff. And now suddenly they're coming forward and pumping up something that really seems out of character for them. That's a clue. That's what we call a very strong clue. It means that there's some tomfoolery afoot somewhere, because whenever these guys are involved in something like this, it means something bad is going on, and because their presence says that there's some deception that is happening. And I'll tell you something that I have come to depend on as more reliable information, because nothing from the mainstream media is reliable, of course. Here's something that was told to me that I do consider reliable. Uh, the great scientist Boyd Bushman, who I spoke to in 2012, uh, uh, I think he passed away that year. I spoke to him in 2008. One of the things that Boyd Bushman told me, Boyd Bushman was the skunkworks scientist. He was the scientist who worked with many of these aerospace companies, who claimed that he worked with materials coming out of Area 51, that he was the head scientist responsible for examining materials from the Roswell crash that had occurred, and material that was being funneled in to through Area 51 and then into his hands, and that he was responsible for utilizing that material and processing it into experimentation and work with anti-grav and other things that he worked with. He told me, and I'm pretty sure he also made this public information as well. He told me that Area 51 is no longer there. The base is no longer there because it was compromised by too many people over the years, including his name escapes me right now. The gentleman that they made the show about on Netflix, who was who was giving up information about Area 51. And
Are you talking
many,
about Bob Lazar?
yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of Bob Lazar. But not just him. Others have given up so much information about Area 51. So as a result, Boyd Bushman said that about maybe like a decade ago, about like maybe like 15 years ago, Area 51 was actually moved out from that Groom Lake area. The base was actually relocated to Utah, relocated to Utah. And he said there's still there's still stuff there that they couldn't remove, which is why you still see the because there was stuff that was out of their control to remove. But the actual military base itself, the lab and all that, has been moved out of there a long time ago, and it is relocated to a place in Utah. And I believe that. I believe that that is true. However, I also believe that there was some stuff there that they could not move, stuff that was related to alien tech. And because of that, because that portion could not be moved, but that doesn't mean it can be found either, because we're talking way under the earth. Uh, and so that's why you still see a presence there even today. And it's only for that reason. So I really am of a mind that the alien storm, I think some people call it alien storm, alien surge, uh, the whole the whole movement is something that is kind of a disinfo movement that has been created in order for intel agencies, and these could be intel agencies of the cabal, it could be of who knows, of the international community, can sit back and do what they've always done, which is collect the information of who's going to be causing trouble in the future. And just it's so easy because when you got a movement like this, you've got all kinds of people, coming forward and giving up their info, and I think they're just sitting around collecting it all and putting it on a list so that they can tell who are going to be the people who are going to be problems with this in this area in the future. And so that's why I like to warn people whenever I can that it's a little bit, it's very dicey to get involved in openly get involved in this sort of thing because they're just sitting out there collecting that list like Santa. See who's been naughty, who's been nice. And that is a list you do not want to be on.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many lists now that I'm wondering how many opportunities that maybe they've made entirely new lists just for me, and I'd feel so honored. Thank you. I love you. It's the I love you list. It's the I love you so much list. Now, I mean, definitely I've asked that question before too, John. I thought to myself, okay, it was probably just, I mean, the person that supposedly came up with the Facebook page, he's like 21, 22. This is what I think happened. I think that there were some very smart people that know how to control media and manipulate things. They saw the Facebook page and they said, you know what? Think of all the things we could do with this Facebook page. Think of all the people that we could get information on and all the stuff that we could collect. So do you think that it was set by someone that just like, hey, I'm gonna do this as a joke, and then powers that be kind of took over? Or do you think it was more so like it was from the beginning designed as this, like as a I don't know, what's like a cookie jar per se for data?
Yeah, I think it's very close to what you just said, because a lot of these things they can happen organically, like that kid. I mean, that kid, the 21-year-old kid who you just said started the Facebook. I'm sure he's honest and he's a person who authentically believes in this kind of thing, and he's probably being truthful, living up to his truth. But the problem is that, yeah, elements of the cabal then latch on to something like this, that they see some organic power to it, and then they're the ones who notify their minions in the media and all their other powerful allies, and then they start trying to figure, hey, we can use this to our advantage. We can use this as a resource. Because why? Because information is power. That's why Facebook was started to begin with, because information is power. And when you can get people to collect the information on themselves and volunteer it, that's the greatest situation to be in. because then you can get information on not thousands, but you can get information on millions of people. And in this community, that has been going on for many, many years. We have entire agencies that are supposedly devoted to collecting uh, information on people who cite UFOs, who see UFOs, people who have UFO encounters. And there's all these private groups, supposedly semi-private groups that are running around buying the lists of the people who have alien encounters and alien sightings, UFO sightings. Why? Why do they want those lists? Why do they want to have the biographical data of people who have UFO experiences? Well, the only answer could be because it's important, because they need that, because these people in the very near future are somehow going to light up. They are going to become very important. The same reason why the government wants guns registered. That's the same exact reason. They want to know where the power is and where the power is going to be in the future. And so that's why these kind of movements are so dangerous, because it's people just going in and volunteering their own information about themselves in topics that very, very soon are going to become globally important and globally known as well. So that's something that people really need to keep in mind.
Now that's getting deep, because we've talked about the ET phenomenon before, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you don't necessarily believe there are ETs flying around through space, correct?
Correct. I That's why I wrote my book, The Extra Dimensionals, because I don't believe that from all the evidence and proof I've seen throughout the years and all the major cases and my own investigations, I don't believe that extraterrestrials are coming from other planets or outer space. I believe they are coming from the Earth, that they are leaving through the Earth as well. I believe that they are coming from other dimensions, kind of sideways, through portals. They are not traveling time and space like we would. They are not, because they are not human. They are not locking themselves in tin cans and sailing across space. They're just not doing that. Because according to Fermi, if they were doing that, Federico Fermi, if they were doing that, then they would all be here in mass already. If they were physical like we are, they would just be here in mass, and they would be doing trade, they would be doing whatever they do, but they'd be doing it in large numbers and openly. But they can't do that because they're not physical like we are. That's just the way it is. And I first learned that from FBI documents that I put right in my books to show people where that's coming from and what that's about.
Now, this is where it gets very interesting. We're getting into the Fermi paradox. And I know that some scientists fear finding relics or artifacts on another planet because they're going to say, wow, we're finding remains of a civilization on another planet.
Right.
Where did they go? Right.
Right, right.
So,
Because we know those relics are out there, and there's ruins of cities on other planets, and there's all kinds of stuff left behind. Because apparently there was a time when there was some kind of alien civil, or maybe it was us that were on the moon and on these other planets. Uh, so there's all kinds of relics and ruins out there because there was a time when alien civilizations were out there, and all that's left now are the goodies that all the countries, all the nations want to go collect and want to go mine. That's why they're so anxious to do outer space travel. That's the main reason.
yeah. And to add to that, the secret space program that's been talked about for decades, there's so much disinformation about that. I wonder how much of it's accurate. I'm sure there's maybe I shouldn't say I'm sure, but there could be a percentage that's got some solid data there. But the new Space Force that's really been pushed recently, and the new branch of the military, Where do you see those technologies going within the next 10 years, John? And do you see there being people in ships in space doing what you're saying publicly within the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's more like the next 10 months. That's how I see it. I think it's something that could be going forward right at this moment, because a lot of it is probably going on already right now. But it appears that much of it is in the control of the cabal at this time. But the alliance of nations that is fighting against the cabal, they are slowly taking control of certain many aspects of life from them. For instance, very recently, we're being told that they were able to take control from the cabal of, what do you call that, when they've been creating these aluminum chemicals in the sky, and all these heavy metals in the sky, which people are really have been upset about for so long, and apparently control of that process was taken back from the cabal by the alliance forces very recently. Um, I'm forgetting what you call that, the process. Uh, but
Stratospheric
there's
aerosol injections, solar radiation management,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
SAI. It's kind of like STDs of the sky. Stay away from them.
yeah, yeah. Another one of the things that they're taking control of is, well, according to intelligence that we have received, it appears to be the 5G. The 5G was going to be used to our detriment, to the detriment of humanity in a large, large way. Frequencies were going to be used to basically destroy us, and we're getting reports that the control of that has also been seized by the White Hat Alliance that is working for humanity. And what else? And so, anyway, the secret space program is itself largely under the control of the cabal still. That's what directed energy weapons are about. They're all about, because we got these platforms out there, and satellite platforms, and they do not belong to us. They belong to the bad guys, and they are using them. They are using them. We've seen them. We've seen it happen. So these things, these issues, we're in the middle of a global war where the control of these items are being seized back from the cabal, little by little. And but it is happening, and I think the same thing is going to happen with the secret space program as well. We're going to be getting control back of that from the cabal, and that's what Space Force announcement was all about. It was all about the tip of the spear of the alliance movement, which is Donald Trump, which is President Trump. It was all about him announcing to the cabal that he's coming for their secret space program, and he's bringing an army with him.
It's very interesting the parallels of now versus when Reagan was in office. Even the same slogan or a very similar slogan, "Make America Great Again," "America Great," and then the Space Force, the Star Wars program that Reagan was working on, and now we've got the Space Force again. There's some very interesting phenomenons.
Parallels.
Wow, yeah, the
Yeah.
parallels are incredible. And also, if you watch the Back to the Future series and the Tesla technologies, I mean, you can get into some pretty interesting LARP sessions, live action role playing sessions. But what I see more of it as is just the universe seems to work in a simulation factor. It seems to work in cyclical timelines, and when you can break these things down, the names, the people's names, words, numerology connected to the planets. It just all has some alignment. It seems like we uncovered oftentimes after the fact. We're always looking for that connection point. Oh, okay, this happened because of that. That happened because of this, etc. And these quantum computers that are coming out now are just, I mean, if we have access to these quantum computers, we could be accessing the gods. We could be accessing information of these extraterrestrial intelligences that are far beyond our capabilities. And what do you think about the quantum computers that are being advanced right now? Do you feel that those are some type of connection devices with possibly extraterrestrial intelligence?
Yeah, they could be. And I also believe those quantum computers could be the causation behind the Mandela effects that we are seeing so strongly all around us, where these little important details keep getting changed, and they are changed. You can't even dispute that this is happening, because it appears that something is messing with the timelines, and the Mandela effects are visible all around us, and our memories are the same, under the same timeline. We all share that. So for that reason, when there's little Mandela effects occur, we can spot them. We can spot them. We can see that something is going on. And I think it could be these quantum computers that are messing with the timeline. And so we need to look into that, because we don't want to wake up one day and see Hillary as president.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
No,
Thank
you
you,
don't.
Satan. You ever play that
No.
backwards? Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have you?
you
I
don't
mean,
want
have you?
that.
It's like, how did they come up with that? You play it backwards and it sounds like thank you, Satan.
There's got to be a reason.
I
Gotta
mean,
be a reason.
wow,
Yes.
wow. I need my
Yeah.
tinfoil hat for that, John. I mean, that's wild.
You should
So
have the hat on.
well, I've got the carbon fiber one. This one does actually block
Ah.
5G. It does. This
Okay.
5G blocker on.
Good.
Man, I'll tell
Good.
you, you need to get one of these
Yeah.
meters, because it'll scare the hell out of you. Every time I turn this thing on, that's how much
What the?
microwave radiation I'm getting right now. This is strictly designed for microwave radiation. And what's it showing? 1600 average, shouldn't be over 10.
Wow.
1600. It's because I've just got a little router in the other room, but I mean, that's not even a 5 gigahertz router, and I'm getting blasted with microwaves, but it's okay because I'm
Where's it coming from?
router just 10 feet away. You get your
Okay.
phone. If you got your phone, if you want to do something that'll freak you out one of these days, get your phone. Don't even turn it on. I mean, you can have it on, but don't talk on it. Don't text on it. Just put it next to you. You're in your car. You get one of these things, you turn it on, and this thing will start spiking like crazy when you're out in an area that's trying to find a cell phone tower. It's pinging these
Yeah.
EMF signals, and people don't even realize they're blasting themselves with the EMF radiation. If you're sensitive to it, you can feel it sometimes. But this actually picks up the sound waves of microwave frequencies, so it interprets them. And like you said, that 5G, the 5G rollout that's going to have communication frequencies sending up to 39 gigahertz, 39 billion hertz millimeter microwave beams for faster download speeds. I mean, come on, folks. Just go sit in the microwave and turn it on if that's what you really want. I don't think you really do. Don't go do that. Do not go do that. Really bad idea. I was exaggerating. I was saying that as a figure of speech. Do
Okay.
not do that. I'm going to get an email. Rex, I tried that, man. I didn't get any faster download speeds. I actually came out and I was cooked, man. It was crazy. Do not do
Yeah.
it.
I don't think you should be knowing all of these things, Rex. I don't think it's helping you. I think you should
Oh,
return that meter to Amazon just as soon as you can. And I don't want you looking into these things, because I don't see it improves anything.
John, you're making too much sense, man. You're making way too much sense. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, we're going to take a couple more questions here, and then we're going to close this out. The Anunnaki, very much talked about through religions, politics, science. It seems like it all boils down to the Sumerian king list, where the gods descended from the heavens and gave the kingship to Ululim, which is the first king. Do you think that the Sumerian king list is accurate as far as the timelines that these people ruled? And if so, do you think that the Anunnaki are the ones that created this kingship that we see around the world right now?
I haven't studied that very much as far as that goes. Uh, all of my information about that sort of thing tends to come from movies. If people want to see what I'm talking about the top three movies that Hollywood released by accident and then tried to get banned immediately because the higher ups discovered that they were revealing too much information that they didn't want to. They did not want to. And it's information regarding what you just talked about the Anunnaki and about many others. And the three movies in the last, I think it was like the last 20 years that have been released regarding that topic, that those topics are, of course, the first Matrix movies by the Wachowski brothers. The second was a movie called John Carter of Mars. John Carter of Mars. Extraordinary details revealed in that movie about the real world, and what it really signifies, and what our true history is. And the third one was the Jupiter Ascending. Jupiter, also by the Wachowski brothers. Very, I don't know what it is about them, but
They're
uh,
now the
Ju-
Wachowski sisters.
yes, that's correct. That's correct. Um, so there's some connection between their transition in their sexuality to the fact that that have revealed these things to a tremendous extent. And Hollywood tried to stop these movies. They canceled the advertising budget for these movies halfway, as soon as they launched it. They tried to bury these movies when they came out. And if you would rather, if you're a visual person rather than a person who's going to go out and study sacred texts, uh, I would check out these three movies for details about our real history, hidden history, and what really has gone on in the past, because there's just nothing like them that I can imagine about what's really going on in the real world, especially in regards to the Anunnaki.
Yeah, those are all great films. I remember Jupiter Ascending very well as the Matrix series, my favorite series of all time. And I was joking when I said that about how they went from the Wa, Wachovi, what is it?
Chowski
Wachowski
brothers,
brothers to the Wachowski sisters. And
right?
they did, they really did. So I'm
Yeah,
like, man, maybe they just, they figured everything out and they're like, you know what? We're bored. What do you want to do? Oh, why not? Let's get a sex change. Yeah, let's do it.
yeah.
So I
The
mean,
final great secret. The
the
final great
final
secret.
great secret. Well,
Yeah,
we're transferring over. Totally if that's what they want. I mean, I'm certainly not. I mean, if that's their thing, that's cool. Whatever. I just think it's interesting how they came out with all these incredible movies, and then all of a sudden, both of them, not just one of them. If it would have been just one, it wouldn't have been as interesting. But the fact that both of them decided to do it, I just think it's very fascinating. And with that being said,
everything's connected.
yeah, yeah. The other day I purchased some mints at this UFO conference, and the lady that sold them to me, she talked like this, and she really did. She talked like this, and she was buff, but she looked like a lady. And I was talking to this other person about it. I was like, I don't know if what and I didn't care. I was just talking to this other lady about it, and I was like, I don't know if this was a guy or a woman. And the lady that I was talking to said, oh, well, she said that she was married to a guy. And then I was looking at the lady I was talking to, and I'm like, oh, this is getting really awkward because the lady I'm talking to has got a mustache. What is going on? So I was just digging the hole deeper for myself. That's why I rarely leave the garage, John, because I just make things awkward. And I don't mean to. I just do, man. I make it weird, and I feel bad after the fact, and I have to apologize after. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. Anyway, so this is incredible times. We live in amazing times, and John, it's an honor to talk to you, man. I love it when you come on the show. Your energy's great, and I really hope that for the 2020 conference, the LeakCon 2020, I really hope you can make it. I think it'll be around April sometime. So I'll get you a notice on that as soon as possible. But before we close out, I want you to give us a couple of gems, if you would, and share the names of your books again before we close out, because I know everybody in here is going to want to get at least one or two of the three. I would recommend all three, folks, because they're all must reads, and I've got autographed copies. So hello.
Awesome. Hello. Yeah, my books are the Extra Dimensionals, the Para Investigators, and the Clear Hearers. And these are my three books, and they are available on my website, johnthamabooks.com. You can always buy them. Of course, they're also available on Amazon as well. And you can actually read the first 50 pages of each of the books for free. I always tell people, just go read the 50 pages. If you do not buy my books after reading the first 50 pages, then you're a better person than I am, because that is difficult stuff to resist. Because when you see the stuff that is revealed, it's pretty hard to stop getting that information, because it's the stuff that is hidden from us in every community, including this one. And so people need to know this stuff because it's relevant to our lives right now. And people need to really be on top of this and be on top of what's going on. And on a personal note, I will be doing a great conference in Tucson, Arizona. Yeah, Tucson, Arizona, Saturday, September 28th. September 28th, Saturday, 10 to 4, over here in Tucson, Arizona. And that is going to be coming right up. You can find it on my Facebook, on my website, and on all my other platforms as well. And I'm really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that. That's going to be a fantastic conference where we'll be going over a lot of important new information. Also, I'll be, of course, doing Portal to Ascension in Irvine, California, October 4th to the 6th. And that is coming right up as well. And I'm sure I've got plenty more. And I'll be looking forward to doing LeakCon with Rex in the near future as well. That'll be pretty awesome.
That's what I'm talking about. Super excited about that. Folks, check out JohnTAMABooks.com. That's JohnTAMABooks.com. Also on Amazon, also on Facebook. Now, there's several people that asked this question. So, man, I got to ask. The flag pin you've got on your jacket, is it supposed to be that way?
Why is it backwards?
So upside down.
It's upside down. That is, folks, for those who do not know, those who haven't been in the military, having a flag upside down is a sign of universal distress. It means SOS, come help. And I did not mean to do that. Please, please forgive me. I just put it right side up, I believe. Yes, I did. And it should be okay. I am not in distress, Rex. There is no one from the cabal here holding directed energy weapons on me. I am okay. I am not in distress. There's no SOS going on. So please forgive me for throwing out that signal, guys.
We were freaking out, man. Like,
I know.
We're like, dude, is he okay? Are they behind him telling him what to say right now?
Why isn't he giving the safe word? What's happening to him? He's under duress. I know there's some military guys out there who probably are like, oh my gosh, something's wrong, Rex. Save him. Save him.
So glad you're good. This was fantastic. Yeah. And looking forward to next time, John. Thank you so much.
Me too, Rex. Thanks, man. Awesome stuff.
Right on. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us. Click the subscribe button. Now, if you've hit the bell, make sure it's on the right settings, because sometimes the bell has different settings. Make sure it'll give you access to all the live shows, because I do 2 or 3 live shows a day. And remember, be excellent to each other. Be the change you want to see.
Hardest working man on YouTube. The James Brown of YouTube.